coworker asked me why I ignored him this morning. I was still asleep. Welcome back to Creepy Crochet and Creepy Pasta. Let's get into today's scary. Listen, I'm not saying I'm being followed or anything like that, alright? I just want to clear that up front. It's just that weird little incidents have been happening to me recently. Stuff that's easy to brush off on its own, but together it's starting to get under my skin a little. I don't know. Maybe I'm just exhausted. I hope that's what it is. But I'm starting to feel like I don't live alone anymore. For one, when I'll go to lay down to go to sleep, I hear things, you know? Like outside my house or downstairs. Not that that's a big deal or anything, this house has always been like that. Like when I was a kid and I would stay over here with my grandpa, I'd stay up in bed listening to creaking boards or what I thought was some kind of monster scampering around outside. But there'd always be some explanation to it. Raccoons, the wind, late night bathroom trips. That's why I didn't think much of it at first. But the thing is, it feels like that stuff has been happening more often as of late. I mean, I must have lost like 15 hours of sleep in the last week because of this crap. It's not like I'm waiting at my bedroom door holding a bat or anything. I've just always had a hard time sleeping when it's noisy. It also feels like the noises have gotten more, I don't know, specific. The weird thing is it's not even loud most of the time. It's just enough noise for me to pick up on it. It'll be one sound every few minutes. A floorboard downstairs, something brushing against the side of the house. Once I could have sworn I heard one of the cabinet doors in the kitchen tap shut. And every single time I hear something, I end up holding my breath without realizing it. Just sitting there in bed listening as hard as I can. I've even started checking rooms before I go to sleep, which I know sounds ridiculous. Not because I think somebody's actually in the house or anything, I just feel compelled to do it. I can't even try to sleep before I've swept the whole house. The worst part is that once I'm finally awake enough to go get up and look around, everything always seems completely normal again. No open doors or missing things, nothing moved around, just that feeling that I interrupted something by getting out of bed. But last night, around maybe 2 or 3 in the morning, I heard what sounded like somebody taking one careful step downstairs. Just one. Then nothing for like 5 minutes. Then another one. Then another, and another, and another. It went on like this for what felt like hours. When I couldn't fall back asleep, I just started counting the sounds. 15 creaks. The first thing I did the next morning was count my stairs. 15 steps. My stairs have 15 steps. This freaked the hell out of me. I'd been trying to rationalize all those sounds for days, but this was a pretty big coincidence. Was there someone in my house? If so, why wasn't anything out of place? Nothing was stolen or moved or anything. And how could they have gotten inside? All the windows were normal, and I always triple-checked the locks on my doors, especially as of late. Eventually I told myself that what I heard couldn't have possibly been footsteps. Because why would someone go through all the trouble of breaking into my house just to tiptoe around? If they wanted to hurt me or rob me, they certainly could have. When I was done arguing with myself, I got ready and drove to work. The weather didn't do anything to calm my nerves. The sky was a washed out shade of gray and I could just tell it was about to rain. Anyways, I made it to my office and slumped down into my chair. Just as I was about to open my laptop and start working, I saw the shadow of my coworker looming over me. I turned around expecting to hear some small talk or a work question. My coworker, let's call him John Doe for the sake of privacy, always had this big toothy grin on his face. When I turned around to talk to him, he looked like a different person. Sweat was beginning to form on his brow and he was swaying back and forth nervously. Worst of all, he was frowning. In 3 years of working with John, I can count on my hands the number of times I've seen him frown. "What's wrong, John?" I asked, growing more worried by the second. He cleared his throat before he spoke. "Hey man, you alright?" "Yeah." "I don't know, I saw you this morning and you were acting kind of off." "What are you talking about?" "At the gas station on 35th. "What?" I blurted out, cutting him off. "I was driving past the gas station on 35th Street and I saw you there. You were just walking up and down the street. You know, I rolled down my window and tried to talk to you, but you just ignored me and kept pacing back and forth. You kept ignoring me, so I just gave up and drove away. I was just really weirded out, so when I saw you come in, I figured I'd ask you what the heck that was all about." "John, I wasn't at the gas station today. Hell, I didn't wake up until 7 this morning. You sure?" "Well, I could have sworn it was you." "Well, it wasn't. Gee, I suppose it was pretty dark out. Maybe I need to get my eyes checked." As he said this, his familiar smile creeped back onto his face. "Well, sorry to bother ya," he said as he began walking back to his cubicle. "John," I said. He looked back at me. "What was he wearing?" I asked. "What?" "The man you saw at the gas station. What was he wearing?" "Well, I didn't pay much attention to his outfit, you know." "Oh," he said, his face lighting up. "Now that you mention it, he was wearing an odd hat." "Odd how?" I asked. "Well, it was just a red baseball cap, but it had 1984 on it. Man, I remember reading that book way back in grade school. Not the kind of thing you expect to see on a hat." He turned around and sat down at his desk. I froze. A 1984 hat. My dad gave me a hat just like that when I was in high school. I've never seen another one like it. I basically sleptwalked through the rest of the day. My head was swimming with questions. When I finally got home, I went through my entire house. Everything was in its place, except for one thing, my hat. I always hang my 1984 hat on the second coat hook from my back door. Always. But when I checked that room, the hat was hanging slightly out of place. It was on the hook closest to the door. I checked the inside band. There was a receipt folded into it from the gas station on 35th Street. Time, 4:12 a.m. My girlfriend keeps forgetting that she broke up with me. Welcome back to Creepy Crochet and Creepy Pasta. Let's get into today's scary story. Dude, honestly, I don't even know why I'm writing this. I don't know whether to be annoyed or just flat out terrified. Me and my girlfriend have been together for 3 years now. I don't want to go through the whole spiel of how we used to be so happy or how I don't know how it ended up this bad. But I will say, we were deeply in love. I'd have done anything for her. And I know she'd have done the same for me. We'd been bickering for a few months before things finally snapped. Bickering turned to arguing, arguing turned to full-blown fighting. Everything culminated in a massive screaming match. Needless to say, that's when we knew that we were far too gone. Even still, hearing the words come out of her mouth shattered my heart into a million pieces. Walking away was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. It felt like the beginning of an incredibly dark period in my life. I wasn't sure I was ready to brace it. I didn't know if I was ready to be alone. I spent about 2 months swallowing before deciding that it was time to cowboy up. One day I just woke up. I was ready to start life again. It took a few months, but things started getting better. I was eating cleaner, going to the gym 4 times a week, and had started going out with friends again. I'd met a few women along the way, but I wasn't ready to get back into a relationship just yet. Unfortunately, my ex-girlfriend ensured I had no other choice. She just started showing up at my house at odd hours of the night. Sometimes she wouldn't even knock. She'd just stand there, right outside the door, for hours on end. When she did knock, though, it was like she thought we were still together. I'd answer the door and get hit with the same remarks. "Why haven't you texted? I miss you, baby. Let's have a sleepover." It's like you don't even love me anymore. Obviously, this confused the hell out of me. I'd explained that we were broken up, and now that I had some time to process, I realized that we weren't meant to be together anyway. She'd always get so angry. Never enough for me to worry about my own safety, but enough that I could tell she was boiling on the inside. I'd send her away and she'd stomp off like a pouting toddler. I wasn't even upset that she was showing up. I was more upset that she had broken up with me and she didn't even acknowledge it. She just expected me to let her waltz right back into my life all willy-nilly. It felt disrespectful. A few nights ago, she took it a step too far, though. I came downstairs to make some breakfast and found her passed out on my couch. No signs of forced entry, no broken door, broken windows, nothing. She was just there. Then she had the audacity to stretch and yawn with a smile like this wasn't the most outrageous shit she'd ever done. When I told her she had to leave, she threw the biggest fit I had ever seen. Her face looked like boiling lava. She turned into a hurricane right there in the living room, cursing, spitting, knocking furniture over. I told her if she didn't leave, I was calling the police. And off she went, stomping through the door before slamming it closed behind her. I assumed that I had just left the door unlocked, and after that night, I triple-checked every single night that it was bolted shut. She didn't come back for a while. A day went by, then 2, then 3. I thought I was home free. I went through my whole routine of checking the locks on the doors and windows all throughout the house. You can never be too cautious. I even locked my own bedroom door just because the whole experience made me paranoid. And I guess that's finally paid off. Because as I lay here in bed typing this, I can hear her coming up the stairs. She keeps singing my name like it's some kind of nursery rhyme. "Donovan, oh Donovan, where are you?" It was soft at first, but with each step it's gotten more and more demonic, more angry and unhinged. The footsteps have stopped right in front of my bedroom door, and the sound of the door handle bouncing up and down is paralyzing me. "Open the door, sweetie. I miss you, my sweet boy. Please let me come in. I can smell you, you dirty, dirty boy." The door handle looks like it's gonna give any minute. The door keeps warping and flexing. Her voice is getting angrier and angrier. I hope that people see this. That way, if I die tonight, you all know who to blame.
Tonight's ghost picture is from a lady who swears blind that there was no one else in this location with her and her daughter at the time, and that this person couldn't even get in and out of the gate on their own, let alone without her not seeing them. If you are new here, please make sure that you hit the follow button and go and binge my podcast, The Darkling Chronicles, on Spotify, Apple and YouTube. Now, this ghost picture is from Lizzie, so a massive thank you, Lizzie, for sending it to us. And she says, hey, this was taken on the 31st of March 2026. It was a really sunny day, so I took my daughter to the country park. There is a little sensory garden in there which is enclosed, and you need to unlock the gate to get in and out. I like it in there because she tends to run off and it feels safer to me. Lizzie reaffirms that it was just her and her daughter in there. She says, no question about it. No one unlocked the gate, no one was in there, no one joined us in there. Anyway, I took this photo here, sat on a bench. Her daughter is in the pink top. Only to realise later on, when I looked back at the picture, there's what looks like a little boy running past her, and there was no one there at the time. Let's look at these pictures. So this is the garden. This is Lizzie's daughter in the pink top here. But this little boy here running past was not there. Let me zoom in. Now, Lizzie goes on to say as well, I know people will think I'm lying, but I swear to God I'm not. There was no one else there. This kid couldn't have opened the gate. And it's also worth noting that right next to this enclosed garden is a baby graveyard. That actually gave me chills, because when she first sent this to me, I was like, he looks quite like real to me. You sure he just wasn't kind of running past? But she reassured me there was no one else in there, and her daughter would have reacted to this little boy, and she didn't react at all. As soon as I found out there was a baby graveyard next door, I thought, my goodness, this gives this picture a lot more credibility, doesn't it? Now, there is another picture she took of this little boy literally a second later, which gives you a little more of a fuller image of him, so let's look at that. Now, Lizzie says, like, he is running full pelt at this gate, and she is adamant. She says to me that they couldn't even open this gate. So I've never been there, but it might just be that, you know, it's a bit tricky and it needs an adult to do it. Let's zoom in and have a closer look, because I did find it interesting. Now, you can't really pick too much out because we have to take Lizzie's word for it here, obviously, but this little boy looks like he's running with his arm thrown forward. And if you look at Lizzie's little girl's hands, they're pink, they're like quite solid, you can see them. Whereas if you look at this little boy's, it looks like that's his hand over here and it looks grey. And also his back legs seem to disappear. But what I will do is I will put these images on my story for you to have a closer look. Please let me know in the comments what you think as usual, because you always pick out really interesting points. I find these images fascinating. I just love receiving them. If you've got a ghost picture or a story, you can message me on TikTok and Instagram, or you can email me thedarklingchronicles25@gmail.com. I would love to talk to you. I'll catch you for some more ghost tea in the next one.
I live in the heart of Appalachia, and this is easily the most terrifying story of one of my experiences. The story may be short, or it may be drawn out. I'm recounting these events as I type, as it was honestly one of the most horrifying things I've experienced, and it brings me genuine stress to think about. This happened maybe 2-3 years ago. I live in southern West Virginia and have for my entire life. The woods and mountains surround every direction you look, and nighttime is a darkness that you can never dream of unless experienced. I was with a friend, I'll call Mark. Mark was at my home one evening, doing the usual things, watching UFC, playing Xbox, etc. It was extremely late when we finally got bored and decided to go for a walk on a nearby trail to smoke a joint. This is not a particularly long trail, but it is very dense in the woods that surround it, and it is easy to get freaked out when thinking of your surroundings. We finally get to about halfway into the trail, 30 minutes-ish, where we stop, pack our joint, and stand on the trail to chill and talk. The forest is very alive tonight. There are always noises in the woods, but the amount of animal activity for the time was unsettling. At this point, it was probably past 1 a.m. This was strange and kind of eerie, but not alerting, as any sort of predatory animal in the area may cause a disturbance. We finished smoking and continued our walk when almost immediately the forest falls dead quiet. And as soon as the forest goes quiet, there is a voice. It almost sounds like a mocking, humanoid voice, shaking and uncertain. Almost like an old children's toy, like the ones with the crackly speakers and robotic voice, if you know what I mean. This immediately sets us off. We bolt directly down the opposite length of the trail, but the sound does not gain distance. It doesn't get closer, per se, but no matter how far we ran down the trail, this eerie voice remains the same volume, going over and over with no quieting or stopping. At At this point, I'm convinced that we are in genuine danger. Something I have felt very few times. Finally, after sprinting for who knows how long, we exit the trail, gasping for breath and almost at the verge of tears of how frightening this was. We begin to exit the trail, and about 5 minutes from the exit, there is a bone-shaking, heart-stopping, murderous scream from directly behind us. I know what a mountain lion sounds like. This was not an animal. This was not someone playing or watching a movie. This scream sent birds flying from nests and made my heart drop into my stomach. It was the most genuine, depraved, and violent scream that I have ever heard. This is a true story that I have only told maybe 3 people, all of whom seem to brush it off as false. I've never been a person to push for the existence of the paranormal or spiritual, but I genuinely believe I encountered something inhuman in those woods. Edit, I know I will receive questions such as what the voice was possibly saying or to explain the area and what happened after. I genuinely cannot remember what the voice was saying, if anything intelligible. I don't know if I could understand it then, and I certainly cannot recall understanding it after several years of blocking it out of my memory. All that I recall is that it was a fluctuating voice in pitch, shaking, almost just joining sounds together. After running from the scream at the end of the trail, we ran to the car, which was only about 5 more minutes from the trail, so we got there relatively fast from sprinting. If you guys have any interesting stories you want me to read, feel free to submit them to me. This story was found on our Paranormal by Dobie Doopy. And these stories are all allegedly true, so take with that what you will. Thanks for watching, and stay safe.
I had no choice. I had to jump. I ran to the window and opened it. I took a deep breath and jumped. I did end up breaking my arm, but I didn't care. I looked up at the bathroom window and there was a crazy looking man staring. Hey y'all! This is Last Thread Before Bed, episode 15. This is a series where I read scary stories from Reddit before I go to bed and my ass tries not to get nightmares. So boom, let's get into it. This is from the Scary Stories subreddit from user AnySignificance8548. I moved into a new house a few months ago and have had my things disappear throughout my time living at this house. I decided I should set up some cameras to catch whatever had been stealing my things on camera. I finished setting them up and set off for bed. I woke up on the middle of the night. I'm a heavy sleeper, so this is unusual. I rubbed my eyes to adjust to the light. Wait, the light? I thought. I always turn my light off when I go to sleep, and I specifically remember turning it off this time. I got up as quietly as I could and I opened the door. I walked halfway down the stairs before I heard it. I heard the sound of a person chewing. I quickly went back up the stairs and locked myself in the bathroom. I heard the person coming up the stairs and then coming to a sudden stop. Fuck no, baby. I realized I left my bedroom door wide open and then I heard them walk to the bathroom door. I stepped away from the door a bit and saw their face looking in through the small crack in the door. They saw me, no doubt, because after that they started banging on my door so hard that I seriously thought they were going to break the door down. I got so scared I didn't know what to do. But then it came to me. I yelled at the stranger that was outside the door. I told them I was on the phone with the cops and that they better leave before they get here and arrest them. But they were too smart for me because I heard them say, while laughing, then how come I can't hear them? We both stayed quiet for a while. Then he started banging at the door again, harder this time. I didn't know what to do. They didn't believe my bluff. I looked back at the bathroom window and it wasn't a far drop, but it would probably break my arm. I had no choice. I had to jump. I ran to the window and opened it. I took a deep breath and jumped. I did end up breaking my arm, but I didn't care. I looked up at the bathroom window and there was a crazy looking man standing there looking down at me with the biggest smile on his face. After seeing that, I got up and started running. I ran to my neighbors and begged them to open the door. My neighbors didn't like me that much, so I wasn't sure if they would open the door or not. Luckily, they got annoyed with me and opened the door. They noticed how beat up I looked and let me in without question. Once inside, I asked to use their phone to call the cops. They said of course and explained the whole thing to them. They got over to my house and I ran out. I told them I was the only one who called. I saw my neighbor come out from behind me. I talked with the cops for a while and they searched my house but could not find him. They did find something super disturbing though. They found a little hole in my basement wall with tons of pictures of me, all of which I was crossed out in. They also found stolen items of clothing from my drawer, mainly underwear. Ew. This was the worst memory I've ever had, most likely ever will have. After that, I moved out of that house and into a new one in a different neighborhood. I'm thankful that my neighbor had the decency to open the door that day, and I'm so glad that I jumped from that window. Even if I did break my arm, I also did get treated for that before all talking to the police and stuff. But yeah, that's my story of the worst event that ever happened to me. I hope nothing like this happens to me or anyone else, because the experience that was awful. I would never wish anything like this on my worst enemy. Yeah, that was a really good one. Follow for more scary stories, y'all. Good night.
Demon was feeding off of our fear. If you don't know what I'm talking about and you missed my last video, go back and watch that. But basically, the last thing I told you is that the demon was getting stronger and stronger and stronger. We were having nightmares, things were moving around our houses, and we were having extremely bad luck. We decided it was time to get to the bottom of what he really wanted, because he didn't want to just talk like he had told us. Something wasn't right. We went over to her house to use the Ouija board. I'm kind of scared telling this story because when I talk about him, he seems to return. I'm hearing weird sounds. Let's see if it's my cat. We ask it, what is your real name? It spells out very slowly on the board. My name is N-E-R-O. Nero? Do we know anything about that name? We try to look it up. We don't find anything about demons online. We decide to go to this witch's bookstore that we found online. It's in this really cute part of town, but it's kind of tucked away. It's called Cherry Street. You open this cute little door, you walk up the stairs, and when we got up the stairs, we're bewildered. We've never been in here before. We don't know what to look for. We see herbs, we see books, we see how-tos, we see tarot cards, we see everything that you imagine would be in a witch's bookstore. There's this light shining on this one area of the room. I walk right over there. We don't know where to start, so why not start anywhere? There's a ladder, like a bookstore ladder. I climb up the ladder. I grab the book that the light is shining on. I open the book to a random page. The page I open it to says Nero, and it talks about how Nero and Henry VIII were suspected to be possessed by a demon. So you don't know the story of Nero? Go to the next video and hit follow if you're enjoying my videos.
My coworker is pissing me off. Welcome back to Creepy Crochet and Creepy Pasta. Let's get into today's scary story. Chad crumpled his chip bag as loudly as possible, staring directly at me. I pursed my lips, keeping my eyes forward. Don't give him a reaction. That's what he wants. A big, stupid smile inched across his face as he threw a handful of chips into his mouth and chomped down. Crunch, crunch, crunch. I winced each time his crooked teeth made contact. The second I heard the whir of his fidget spinner, I lost it. Listen here, you little shit. I've had it with you. I seethed, grabbing him by his shirt collar. Chad's eyes grew wide, and he dropped the fidget spinner. Suddenly, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I released Chad and turned to find the head of HR, Karin, pronounced Karin, not Karen, standing behind me, arms crossed. My face flushed with color. Derek, my office, now. I followed her, my head hung in shame as Chad snickered behind me. In the end, I received a verbal lashing from Karin and a final warning. If it happened again, I'd be put on indefinite, unpaid leave. It's a real shame, Lauren said from the cube behind me while Chad was at lunch. Someone should really teach that asshole a lesson. Yeah, I said, an idea brewing. Someone should. I waited until the following week to make my move. Chad had, of course, continued to be an absolute nuisance, so naturally I took it upon myself to teach him a thing or two about office etiquette. I only planned on roughing him up a little, with the aid of a roll of duct tape and a shovel in case he resisted. Tailing his car was easy, sort of. I had to hightail it to keep up with his Prius, but Chad was completely oblivious to everyone on the road, including me when I drove past his house. It was a piece of cake. The guy was basically asking for it. I returned that night with my trusty tape and shovel. I parked a few houses down where a home was being built. Chad lived alone in a safe neighborhood. Surely he'd forget to lock his doors. I snuck around the house and tried the knob to the back entrance. Bingo. I was in. I crept my way through Chad's house, a dim light reflecting off the empty beer bottles and protein shakes littering the countertops. I made a beeline directly for his room, my heart pounding with gleeful anticipation. I slowly pushed his door open, and... Lauren? I stepped into the room, revealing the girl who sat at the desk behind. She grinned as if greeting an old friend. In her hand, Chad's pale, decapitated head dripped blood onto the floor. You weren't the only one who was fed up with him, Lauren said, wiping the sweat from her brow. Now be a gentleman and lend me a hand. We've got some cleaning to do.
It's 2:13 a.m. The street is completely empty, too quiet. Then you hear it. Not footsteps, not hooves, something in between. Heavy, fast, getting closer. Half human, half horse. And completely not from this world. It runs through the night, across empty streets, through intersections, past every building you thought was safe. It never slows down, because it is searching, always searching. People think it is looking for someone. They are wrong. It is not looking for anyone. It is looking for you. It can sense the traces you leave in the world. Not your smell, not your sound, but something deeper. Your fear, your thoughts, everything you try to hide, all of it becomes a signal in the dark. It follows those signals across empty streets. Every time it stops, it is because it is getting closer, not to someone else, but to you. If it appears near your street, it is not coincidence, not fate. It is already locked onto you. No matter where you run, it will find you. People hear the last sound as it approaches. Too fast to escape, too close to ignore, and then silence. Because when it starts running toward you, it never misses. Not because it is hunting people, but because it has already found you.
A few weeks ago, I got an email from a follower that we're going to call Caleb, and he works for a restoration contractor in southern Louisiana, and he swears that this one job is one he will never be able to explain. Now, his crew had been hired to renovate a plantation house that had not been lived in for a few decades. The owners of the property wanted to preserve it as much as possible and as close as possible to the original structure. So instead of tearing the entire thing down, they carefully opened up the old walls, and they did it one section at a time. And that's when they found something so strange. Now, hidden behind one of the upstairs bedroom walls was a narrow cavity that wasn't shown on any of the original blueprints that the owners had given them. And inside it was a small tin box, completely sealed with wax. And at first, they thought it was money or jewelry, something like that. And instead, it contained a folded Civil War era letters, pretty much. And Caleb said that the paper was so unbelievably well preserved, he couldn't believe it. And across the top was a faded Confederate Union designation and a date from 1863. Now, the letter wasn't addressed to anyone in particular. It looked more like a warning than someone wanted, future soldiers to find type of deal. And the first few lines sounded completely normal. It described troop movements, shortages of food, and Union patrols that were happening nearby. Then, the tone completely changed. And it simply read something about, to any man ordered south through the black water, refuse the command, better to face the enemy than what waits beneath those trees. Okay, well, the writer went on to describe how 12 soldiers had entered a nearby swamp after hearing cries for help. They assumed it was wounded men that were possibly trapped after a skirmish. And none of the cries sounded frightening at all. And according to the letter, they sounded actually rather patient. Like whoever was calling knew that the soldiers would eventually come to them. And only one man supposedly returned. He stumbled back just before sunrise without his rifle, and he was completely covered in mud, unable to explain what exactly had happened. And every time someone had asked him where the others were, he'd only whisper the same thing over and over again. They kept calling us by name, but none of the voices belonged to any of the men. So the letter claimed the surviving soldier had passed away about 3 days later from a fever, but before he had passed, he begged his commanding officer to keep every patrol away from that swamp. Like he was begging them to stay away from there. The final line was written much darker than the rest, almost like the writer had pressed the pen through the paper, like he was rushing it. And he simply wrote something like, if you hear your mother calling or your wife or your own voice calling from the cypress, do not answer. So personally, I think it was maybe an encounter with a mimic, but I'll let you decide that. Now, Caleb told me that everyone on the crew got the chills reading it, and curious, they asked the one local historian if there had ever been a battle near that property. And the historian told them no major battle had ever really taken place there, but he did mention something odd. For generations, locals had warned hunters to stay away from one particular stretch of the swamp behind that plantation. The old stories claim people sometimes heard familiar voices calling them from the trees just after sunset, their family, their friends, their children. And most people would just laugh it off, right, as like an urban legend, until they realized that those stories had been told long before anyone discovered the hidden letter. Now, Caleb said that they carefully preserved the documents and they continued working and they gave them to the homeowner. But one evening, just before they packed up for the day, one of the younger workers wandered toward the tree line behind the property and he went to go to the bathroom. Now, the rest of the crew watched him stop, and he tilted his head like he was listening to someone, and when Caleb yelled his name, the man snapped out of it, and he came running back. He looked pale, frightened, and Caleb had asked him, like, dude, like, what are you doing? What happened? And the worker didn't really answer for a few seconds, and he just stood there silently before saying, I thought my dad was calling me. And the creepy thing is that his dad has been dead for nearly 8 years. So, needless to say, none of them ever walked anywhere near that swamp again while working there. So, if you're from Louisiana or if you had any similar encounter about this, let me know what you guys think in the comments.
Babysitting, story time. Now, I was 15. I've been babysitting for a few years at this point, so I had a lot of experience with kids. They love me. Well, a family friend asked if I would go babysit their 7-year-old son for a couple of days while they went out of town to Myrtle Beach, so I said sure, that was great money for me. So the parents put their bags in the car, they showed me where everything is. So his mom made it clear to me that he has a very active imagination and that because his daddy let him watch horror movies the week prior, he's been having nightmares and making things up, saying that he's been seeing stuff around the house that's not there. So they get their stuff in the car, they give their son a kiss, and they leave. So I'm flipping through all the satellite channels, checking out different shows, eating popcorn, little boy's playing with his toys, drinking his little juicy juice, and we're just having a good time. So I go in the kitchen to put a frozen pizza in the oven, and all of a sudden, this little boy comes flying out the living room, running up to me, and then wraps around my leg, just looking in the living room and then looking at me, back and forth. I said, damn, son, are you okay? What happened? He said, she's in there, she's in there. I said, who's in there? He said, her, but I didn't see nothing. And before I can push him any further, he walks over and sits in front of the TV and starts ignoring me. So we're sitting on the couch watching TV, and their couch was in the middle of the room, so you could walk around it. Well, this little boy starts looking behind the couch and then back at the TV. So I start looking back behind us. It's like a natural reaction when you see somebody else doing that, you start doing it. The more he did this, the more I felt like somebody was standing behind us, but I don't see anything. So I get up and walk across the room, and from there I can see the hallway. And for a second, something stood out to me. At the end of the hallway, it looked like someone was peeking around the corner like this. But when I cut the light on, it was gone. So I thought my mom was playing tricks on me. My anxiety's peaking, so I'm like, okay, it's the first time you've been left alone in someone else's house. Calm down, go take a shower and go to bed. But while I'm taking a shower, I get the weirdest feeling like somebody's standing outside of the shower curtain. Now, they had a big-ass bathroom. So I was like, dude, it's a new place. It's a big bathroom. You're not used to this. Just stop freaking out. But I have to keep sticking my head out the shower curtain to make sure nobody's there because I'm getting that vibe like somebody is there. So I peek out the shower again, and bam, this kid is standing in the doorway crying. I said, what's wrong? He said, it's gonna get me. It's in there. I just saw it. Can I stay here with you? I'm scared. I said, yes, stay right there. Just turn the other way. And then I dry off and get dressed in the shower so he can't see me. Now, it's about 11 o'clock at this point, and he's still wide awake. So we sit there and talk for a little while. We play with Legos, Play-Doh. I'm just trying to wear him out so he'll go to sleep. Well, finally, around 2 a.m., he falls asleep. Now, it was already so late, I didn't have time to unpack my clothes, so I just get into bed and I go to sleep. About 10 minutes later, I hear this youngin' screaming again. Before I can even get out of the bed, I hear him thump, 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 and he's already running into my room, jumps into bed with me. He's screaming to the top of his lungs, she's there in my room, behind the door. She's gonna get me if I'm alone. Please don't make me go back in there. So we're laying there in the bed together, and he says, I know you think I'm making stuff up. I promise you I'm not. She was there. I saw her. I said, honey, I believe you. It's okay. Just relax and close your eyes and start taking some deep breaths. So this child has one hell of a grip on me. Like, he's wrapped around me like a python, so I could tell he was really scared. Like, he really thought something was gonna snatch his ass off that bed. So I just held him and hoped that maybe he would calm down. Now, I know a lot of you would just tell these kids to hush and go to bed, but I'm not like that. I went through the same thing as a child. I would see things that were not there, and nobody else believed me. So I wanted him to know that I believed him and I was protecting him. So I reached over to the nightstand and I tapped that old school touch lamp 3 times and put it on the brightest setting so it lit up the room. That way we would feel more safer and we'd get some sleep. Then I start hearing some distant thunder, and then it starts pouring rain. I think, oh, well, that sounds relaxing. So because of that storm, my ass knocked out. I was doing some good sleeping until about 30-40 minutes later. That was when I abruptly woke up to the bed shaking. It felt like a small tremor, like a little earthquake. So I'm trying to get my eyes adjusted and wake up and figure out, why is the bed shaking? Apparently the storm knocked the power out because it was pitch black dark in that room, and the only time I could see anything was when the lightning struck. But once my head gets adjusted, I start hearing a noise like chattering of teeth. I'm laying there trying to figure out what the hell is that noise and what is shaking the bed. And that's when I look over and I see the little boy is sitting up on the other side of the bed with his hands holding the cover, and it's him shaking the bed. He's shaking that hard. And that chattering sound I heard was coming from his teeth. He was sitting here holding the covers with his eyes wide open and going, God, are you okay? Because I thought he was having a seizure, but when I looked at him, his eyes darted over to mine, and I realized he was awake. He was so scared. Like, he couldn't move. He was frozen, shaking and chattering. I'm like, well, if he's not having a seizure, what is wrong with him? And that's when it clicks. He's sitting here staring at the door, so I look at the door. Y'all, let me tell you, in that moment, when that lightning flashed, I damn near shit my pants. It scared me so bad. Have you ever been so scared that your hands and arms and legs start tingling, they damn near go numb? When I looked at that bedroom door, there was someone's head peeking around the door like this, and you could only see their eyes. And when the lightning stopped flashing, I couldn't see anything anymore. It was complete darkness. That was when it really hit me. Holy crap, we're not alone. There's someone else in the house, and they're standing right there. But what really freaked me out was every time the lightning would strike, I could see more of that person's face. Like it started like this, and then this, and this, and then I could see their actual mouth. This person was smiling ear to ear. I could barely take a breath in. All I could think was, what the hell is that thing? Then of course the lightning stopped flashing, so for a few seconds it was completely dark, and I had that feeling again like someone was watching us and getting closer and closer, and I was starting to panic. And when lightning struck a few seconds later, I could tell they were getting closer, because now this motherfucker, person, thing, or whatever, was now at the foot of the bed, peeking over like this, staring at us. At this point, my damn teeth were chattering. All I could hear was between the both of us. So I pulled that little boy up on my lap in my arms as tight as I could, because I didn't want whatever it was to try to snatch him out of my arms, and I held him real tight. So now when the lightning flashed, we could see its whole face peeking over the bed, smiling, looking right at us. So that was when fight or flight kicked in for me, and I remember the dad telling me that he'd put a loaded pistol in the nightstand and behind the headboard of this bed, so I start reaching around for it. And for some reason, my gut was telling me, you better keep your eyes on this thing. Every time the lightning strikes, pinpoint where it is with your eyes and don't take your eyes off or it's gonna jump. Reaching, trying to multitask, keep my eyes on it, hold the little boy, and feel around for this pew-pew, and I finally feel it, and I snatch it out of that holster, and I hold it up. When the lightning struck, I pointed at this thing. I said, if you take another step, I'm gonna blow you into the next room. Get out and leave now. In that moment, something happened. I don't know what it was, but I could feel me looking into it and it looking into me, and that lightning flashed, and then all of a sudden the power cut back on. And no lie, as soon as the power came on, it was gone. I snatched him up out of the bed, grabbed that pew-pew, and ran to the kitchen and called 911. I stayed on the phone with them, the police came, and then I called the parents. I put the cop on the phone, they're talking, and then they tell the cop that they're not coming back until Sunday. Even though we're telling them we think there's an intruder in the house and their child's here, they don't give a shit. They're not coming home. They think it's our imagination playing tricks on us because the power went out and we're getting freaked out with the storm and everything. So I made it very clear I was not staying in their house another minute, and I was going to take their child back to my family's house, and that's where we would be. And they said, okay, fine, we'll see you on Sunday. So I asked the little boy if that was the first time he saw this thing, and he said no. He'd been seeing it for months, but this was the first time it got that close. Now I knew he'd have to go back to that house, so the next day me and my cousin went over and cleansed the entire house, hoping it would help.
Guys, this is why I do not like going to funerals at all. Yes, I've been to many. Obviously we all have family members that actually passed away, and you will end up at the cemetery at one point. Listen to me closely and carefully. Cemeteries are portals, and every time that you go to a cemetery, you open yourself for possession, especially demonic possession. Yes, cemetery, cemetery is a place that you go and bury the body of a loved ones, a friends, or whoever. That's what it's for. But on a spiritual level, when you start feeding the grounds like too much energy, it actually opens portal for demonic beings as well. And a lot of time that we go to funerals, like some of us who we have our third eye open, you will witness people just standing there, or they just going about the business. They walk in. Some of them don't even realize they're at the cemetery. That's because you're not really looking at people. You're looking at spirits that are just hanging out in that ground. And a lot of them don't even know where they are. And a lot of them as well are also loved ones. Yes. But the fact that like cemeteries are portals, all type of beings will enter. That's why you see people like posting their Tesla videos passing by, and in the camera that it's showing you, the radar is picking up, like the maps is picking up people standing by cemeteries. That's because like cemeteries are actual portals, and all type of beings can actually enter and re-enter and visit. So what does that mean? That when you go to a cemetery, you put yourself in a bad position. And I'm not saying don't go. Your loved ones are dead. You go, because when you go, they come to you as well. And I'm telling you, in the mix of it all, other beings, bad beings, evil beings, they tend to hang out. And as soon as that they find someone who is not protecting their energy, they jump right in and they go right home with you, where they make your home a living hell. and then you start wondering what the heck is going on with my life. That's because that your last visit to a cemetery, you took someone home with you, something home with you. So for me, I'm always a little tempted, like, to go to funerals. Always. I've seen my share beings at cemeteries, especially when I was in Haiti. I've been to like plenty of cemeteries where, like, literally I would spot a being just staring at me, pointing fingers at me. You know, they look scared, like with their eyeballs all the way, like all the way open, about to pop out. I remember at that time they actually walked past, like, it was not even a cemetery, someone's graveyard. Literally, I just walked past it, and then there was this guy in full suit, literally looking all sharp with his suit on, and then I actually ended up having a full-blown conversation with that being. And then when I got home, I was telling, my family at that moment what I saw and who I just had a conversation with. And as much as I describe the person, they telling me that this person is long gone. This person is unalive. But yet I just had a conversation with that person, sitting on top of their own graveyard. So I know what, like the ground, like the cemetery and all these energy that are actually trapped there. I know what it does. It opens up a portal, to the spiritual realm, where different beings are actually lurking around. Some are lurking around, and some, the most powerful ones, I'm talking about the demonic ones, they just waiting for someone to just jump onto. And then you take them home, where your home feels like hell at one point, where you feel like you can't even live there, like you're being haunted. You've seen shadows, in your room. That's because of your last visit to the cemetery, that you walked in there and you did not protect your energy. You did not tell yourself you're strong. You did not tell yourself to not cry at no cemetery. Yes, do not cry, because every time you get vulnerable, you're showing such deep emotion when you're crying for that loved ones. These demonic beings take advantage. They jump right in, and then literally you become their little vessel that they control completely. Yes, so be careful when you go to cemeteries. Protect your energy before you walk in there. Tell yourself that your soul belongs to you. You are not open for no energy, no other energy but yourself. And you
Be careful of the gifts you accept. This story comes from a viewer, and she said that she had one hospice patient who absolutely changed her life. Her patient was a 33-year-old woman who had terminal cancer, but she lived in an absolute life of luxury. Designer clothes, expensive cars, a mansion. She had everything. Look at this stuff. Isn't it great? A few days before she transitioned, she grabbed the viewer's hand and she looked at her and said, I don't have any family, and when I pass, I would love for you to accept the key to my kingdom. The viewer laughed it off, assuming that it was just like the medication talking, until
So listen to me.
the funeral. About a week later, a package from the estate arrived, and when she got home, her grandmother handed it to her. She said, "Child, I don't know what's in that box, but it don't feel right. Baby, you should send it back to who it came from." But she ignored the warning. Inside the box was a gold key hanging from a gold chain, and it was absolutely beautiful, and there was a handwritten note. "If you choose to accept this key, everything I own belongs to you, but remember that includes everything." She slipped the necklace on around her neck, and instantly everything felt different. When she walked back into that living room and her grandmother seeing that she had it on, she said, "Hey, now come take a listen. I have a story and it's creepy. It is time for a Denise Shoe story." Her grandmother said, "Oh, baby, they got you now." She ignored it, and then a few days later, an unexpected check for $2,000 showed up in the mail. She said, "I even had to laugh to myself, like, she really did give me the key to somebody's lucky kingdom." The next afternoon, when she got off work, another envelope arrived, but this time it contained more money than she had ever seen in her whole life. She was super excited, She ran to show her grandmother, and instead of her grandmother smiling and being excited too, she looked absolutely terrified. Her grandmother pointed at that necklace and then she said, "Take that thing off and burn that check." But before she could finish saying what she had to get out, she grabbed her chest and she collapsed. The viewer called EMS and started chest compressions, and her grandmother was rushed off to the hospital, and it was determined that she was suffering a massive heart attack. But the next morning, instead of taking off that necklace or burning that check, she went and took it to the bank. And as she went to the hospital, she got a call. Her grandma was gone. And a few weeks after that, another check showed up. This one had no return address, though. As she drove to the bank, she heard her grandmother say, clear as day, as if she was sitting in the passenger seat, "Don't take that money, baby." She went and deposited the check anyways. So you already know, I gotta ask you, do you think that that final check is going to cost her her life, or is it going to cost her someone else? Let me know what y'all think down in the comments, and as always, have your best spooky day. Bye!